Ladies and gentlemen, greetings to all that are listening. Today, I will talk about the political situation in Rwanda, but mainly focusing on the forthcoming July 2024 presidential elections. The political problems in Rwanda are like a volcano with magma bubbling and is about to erupt. From 1994 to date, Paul Kagame has led a repressive state with widespread human rights violations, and in a country from where power and wealth are reserved for his family and a small clique around him. Kagame's regime is among the most prolific perpetrators of transnational repression in the world, targeting those who challenge it through criticism or who questions its version of Rwandan history, or even who question Kagame's rise to power and his role in many atrocities that took place in Rwanda, ranging from mass killings of the Hutus in revenge after the genocide, the killings in the Congo for both Rwandans and the Congolese people, elimination of former RPF members and soldiers that helped him get into power, elimination of political opponents, journalists, and businessmen. This man has terrorized the population of Rwanda. The election process in Rwanda from 2003 had been marred with numerous irregularities, to include intimidation of political opponents, of course, unfair registration process that is meant to deter and fail Paul Kagame's challengers who compete in the presidential elections. And there is always election fraud during voting at the polling stations that are controlled by Kagame's security apparatus. In this round of 2024 presidential elections, the National Electoral Commission, which is totally controlled by Kagame himself, has rejected the candidacies of those who want to compete with him. Hence, Kagame remaining the only player in the field. Registration for candidacy was denied for Victoire Ingabire, Diane Rwigara, Bernard Ntaganda, and Christopher Kayumba. The controversial 2015 constitutional amendment, doctored by none other than Paul Kagame and his clique, gave Kagame a free ticket to rule Rwanda until he dies or hand over to his family. Definitely, this won't be the best way forward to solve the most serious and complex problems of Rwanda that has been ongoing for the last many years, at least since 1959. In 2017, Kagame secured himself 99.9% of the votes. But in actual fact, for State Twagiramungu won the votes nationwide by far. But votes were taken and dumped in the holes and buried, and others were burnt throughout the night. This was done by the security forces that were supervising these elections at the polls in collaboration with Kagame's Electoral Commission staff. All these are known facts. Now, we already know that in a typical kind of fraud, Kagame will win the elections in July 2024 with 99.99% of the votes to win the Rwandan elections in the fourth round from the year 2003. The people of Rwanda have been severely oppressed by this tyrannical regime for the past 30 years now. Every reasonable and rational Rwandan and the international community must understand that these problems in Rwanda guarantees a political time bomb that will explode in the near future if not addressed. Among Rwanda's major problems that led us wage war in 1990 were as follows. One, on the agenda, we fought because we wanted to return home to their homeland many Tutsi refugees that lived outside the country, and eventually to eradicate the problems of refugee once and for all. Secondly, we wanted to put in place a democratic state that observes the rule of law and a government that abides by the laws. Last but not least, to resolve the issues of ethnic and regional discrimination and inequality that had been going on in Rwanda for several decades before the year 1994. Today, under Kagame, these issues have grown even way bigger than ever before. Habyarimana was in power for 17 years. But at 14 years into his leadership, he was made to accept multipartyism. Kagame has ruled Rwanda for the last 30 years, and he doesn't tolerate any opposition or dissent in whatsoever. He silences anyone, as mentioned above, who dares stand against him, save for a few parties that operate under RPF's armpit. Therefore, Rwanda is totally a one-party state that completely lacks any legitimate competition. Before the year 1994, we had 1 million plus refugees who were from the Tutsi ethnicity outside the country. But under Kagame's regime, we have almost 4 million of refugees outside the country, and these fall from both groups, from the Hutus and the Tutsis, to include us, those who helped Kagame get into power. Before 1994, there were two respective Hutu regimes. From 1960 to 1973, the Nduga group led by Kayibanda, and from 1973 to 1994, the Ruchiga, or the northern and northwestern region, led by Habyarimana. It should be clearly noted that today, in Rwanda, we have a puppet regime. Kagame does not rule with his kinsmen, Tutsi, as perceived. Today, Kagame rules Rwanda alone with his family. The Hutus that work with Kagame are just to influence the massive Hutu population for the sake of presidential elections, to earn Kagame votes. But in general, Hutus are a second-class citizen in Rwanda. It's clearly known. They are marginalized and segregated in the most aspects of the society's life. They are the poor of the poorest in the hills of Rwanda. That's unacceptable. The Kagame's authoritarian regime coerces and threatens the population to assemble in their large numbers during the campaigns. And whenever Kagame tours the country, so it may look like the population loves Kagame, but it's not the case at all. The local leaders themselves are selected and appointed by Kagame's military intelligence and the security apparatus in all areas. So the local leaders take all the orders and directives from these agencies to herd and lead the population to appear into these big numbers you see out there for a show. And the people of Rwanda are tired of this kind of mockery. But they have no option. They have no guidance. Kagame's military, the RDF, the police, and the intelligence agencies, assisted by these local leaders, of whom are appointed by the army and the police, herds the population to the assembling points for these campaigns and thereafter the elections. That's how it will be done during the forthcoming presidential elections. Therefore, Kagame is not loved by anyone, as his propagandists put it, and the way they want it to be looked or to be seen, but he's only feared by the population. The Rwandan youths are picked from the neighborhoods of the city and dumped into boot camps and arbitrarily detained unjustly. There are several such detention centers like Iwawaji, Kondo, Nyamata, and several other places around the country where these young people are detained for long periods. Journalists are always killed and jailed for their good work. The Rwandan population is faced with poverty and hunger because of the Kagame's system, high taxation policy. The parliament and the judiciary are there for formality. They both have no powers to execute their duties. Therefore, Kagame does everything to include the deployment of the Rwandan military to fight unjustified wars in the neighboring countries or to perform his business missions without any consensus with the so-called arms of the government. Many of the active soldiers and retired comrades are recalled back by coercion and sent to die into these wars. And in most cases, they are not accounted for. You, the Rwandan people, have the power to change this state of affairs around. You should at least borrow a leaf, learn from your neighboring countries. The other day, President Ruto of Kenya tried to learn and imitate to apply Kagame's taxation policy to Kenyans. But you also what the Kenyan youth did to exercise their rights. Rwandans, rise up and fight for your rights. Condemn the injustice, more especially during these presidential elections. You can boycott everything to stop the tyranny, the dictatorship that has been into your country for the last 30 years. You can save Rwanda from the darkest signs that are looming on the horizon. Fellow Rwandans, please walk the talk, as they say, for the greater good, by demonstrating your passion, your empathy, and purpose. Please work together, overcome the fear, and speak out. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned. This was me, Major Michael Mupende, as usual. Thank you. Bye-bye.